The only thing you can control is risk, and keep that in mind on each and every trade. The funny thing is that the wins are fun, of course, but it's the losses that teach you what you need to know. It's probably the most bullish environment we've seen for stocks in a long time. When you're dancing with the markets, it's best to let the markets lead.
Welcome everyone to TradeStation and another edition of our Trader Interview Series. This is Michael Burke. I'm Vice President of Client Training here at TradeStation. And today we welcome John Carter. I want everyone to realize that you are in the Cayman Islands and you're outside. Are you at the pool?
No, well, so I ended up coming to a coffee shop and doing some work and doing some trading this afternoon. So if the audio is a little garbled, I didn't want to be the guy inside the coffee shop yelling on my cell phone. So I'm standing outside so I can get the wireless. There might be some wind, things like that. But I thought it might just make it more entertaining all around.
Well, we'll make it work. Thanks.
Okay.
John is founder of Simpler Trading and Simpler Options. John is a respected trader, author, and sought-after speaker at trading events all over the world. John is a longtime friend of TradeStation and has done numerous online and in-person events for us at TradeStation. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Michael, it's awesome to be here and looking forward to our sitting down virtually and having a conversation.
Well, thank you. So, John, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in the markets and trading.
The short version is that I grew up in a household that had trading as a part of it. So my father still is a broker, actually. And so I kind of got a sense of the early lingo and things like that were going on in the markets. And it just got myself curious. I was just kind of like, all right, so what is this? It's one of those things that I think if you don't know it, it can be really, really foreign. It's a very foreign concept. I know if I'm at a cocktail party where people, they're not traders there, I don't tell people what I do because it's going to end up being a nonsensical conversation. But when you're talking about trading and you're with other traders, I always love just kind of diving into the nitty-gritty and how people got started and things like that.
That's great. So maybe you can think back to one of your first big wins and how that affected you, and maybe talk a little bit about a big loss that still troubles you.
The funny thing is that the wins are fun, of course, but it's the losses that teach you what you need to know. The win that actually stands out the most is when I was in college, I, at that point, had been trading actually actively for a couple of years, and I was using the CAN-SLIM methodology from Investors Business Daily, and I had talked my girlfriend at the time into loaning me her financial aid money to trade, which I know just sounds like the stupidest thing ever. But what happened was, using the CAN-SLIM methodology, I got into a stock called iOmega, and her $20,000 in 6 months tripled to $60,000.
John, let me stop you for just a second there. Some of our listeners may not know what CAN-SLIM is. CAN-SLIM is an investing strategy developed by William O'Neill, where he's looking for the characteristics that separate the best performing stock. What he looks for are early stages of big price moves. We certainly don't have the time to go into all the details, but that's the basics. So, John, how did you end up getting out of that trade?
Now, I got stopped out when it got to $60,000. And it ended up, had I held on to its peak, it would have turned into a seven-figure trade. So I learned a lot on that trade. One, the methodology worked, it made money, and that girl actually ended up marrying me, so I guess that was a good thing. Two, it also taught me, if you're on a good horse, to learn how to hang on for the ride. And so I learned a lot about that particular trade. In terms of a loss, the one that probably stands out the most is around an earnings trade. And I think it must have been on Netflix. And this was, maybe 3 years ago. But the stock had a 4 standard deviation move after earnings. And I was buying some of the stock after hours, and it just kept going down faster than I'd ever seen before. I've had other losses that were more devastating earlier in my career in terms of blowing out the prerequisite couple of accounts and things like that. But this is one that's in more recent memory, really just had not seen that type of action in a long time. And it just always reinforces the idea of you never know what's going to happen next in the markets, and the only thing you can control is risk, and keep that in mind on each and every trade.
I couldn't agree with that more. John, you're primarily a technical trader and have developed a number of trading approaches over the years. What kind of things are you looking at now to find and generate new trading ideas?
In general, what I like to look at is volatility or lack of volatility. And that's an indicator that we have on your TradeStation app store, the squeeze, and that's a tool that I like to use. But one of the things that's really interesting in this market, it's October of 2017 as we're talking. October is typically a month where the markets roll over and die. And I've really had to come to terms with the idea that this is a bull market that's not mature, looking at things that's like, this is something that could keep on going. And I've just, over the last couple of weeks, have been looking at instances, and I think it was 2 other times. First, after the 1987 crash up to 2000. That was a 13-year bull market. And then the other one was, and this is kind of top of mind here, so I don't have the dates exact, but around 1960 to 1973 was another 13-year bull market. I'm looking at this market, and there's so many things that are bearish, and everybody's looking for the markets to crash, and just really asking myself, are we in the middle or 3/4 through another 13-year bull market? And that's, to me, actually a contrarian play, because the obvious stance here, hey, it's October, we've been rallying since 2009, it's time for this market to crash. And so I've been looking at things with that idea in mind. And it doesn't mean you get married to it, but I think it's so easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom newsletters that are out there, because there's a lot of them, that really get opened up to the idea that the path of least resistance is higher and not to fight that. And so just kind of doing my best to stay on that path versus, really trying to impose my will on the markets, which I've had prior experience with, and it just doesn't work. When you're dancing with the markets, it's best to let the markets lead.
There's really nothing in the economy right now that is negative. Jobs, inflation, everything looks good. It's hard to really go along with the notion that there's going to be a crash coming.
Completely agreed. And the irony is that the headlines are so negative, and maybe they always are, but they just seem like they're more negative this year. And so I think what happens is people take on that negativity and translate that into, it must mean that stocks are going to go lower, when the reality of it is it's probably the most bullish environment we've seen for stocks in a long time. The idea that the stock market is pricing in today what it expects to see in about 6 months. Well, 6 months from today, is the world economy going to be a little bit better or a little bit worse? And everything's pointing to a little bit better.
John, I want to ask you about Simpler Trading. Simpler Trading is actually a family of traders and educators that cover all asset classes and all levels of traders. Can you talk a little bit about a typical day in your office and how you approach trader mentoring?
It's a privilege to trade, first of all, but it's even more fun to be able to kind of work in an industry where you're working with traders. Our office has about 35 team members, 10 of which are traders. And we focus on futures, options, Forex, and equities, and really just the gamut of different markets that can be traded. And some people may be familiar, we had started off with a company called Trade the Markets that's been folded into the Simpler family, so to speak. And a lot of the things and tools that we've developed over the years have been on the TradeStation platform, which has been fantastic, and a lot of that's detailed in my book, Mastering the Trade. But at the end of the day, I love talking to people that have been doing this for a long time, and it's interesting right now to see all kind of the new people that are coming online. And our whole purpose at Simpler Trading, I know this kind of sounds silly, but at some point when you wake up in the morning, you want to have a purpose to doing this because, in all honesty, it'd be a lot easier just to trade. But I went through a lot of pain and suffering to develop the skills to trade. And the idea that as a team, we can shorten that learning curve for other people is what inspires us. So if somebody's just starting out today, they've got a beginner's mind, they're not really too concerned about that because they're going to go in, they're going to place trades. But then after they get kicked in the teeth a couple of times and they start developing fear, that's the fork in the road where either they can recover and go on to a successful career in trading, or they spend years and years and years trading in fear. And I've seen people who've been at this for decades that are still trading from a place of fear, and they're still frustrated that they cannot figure this out. God bless them, they keep on trying. The idea that we can get people in a frame of mind in terms of a skill set and from a psychological aspect that this is something that they can do quickly and develop those skills and have forward progression is just kind of what makes it fun. I mean, otherwise, let's just trade. That would make life a lot easier. And so as a team, a couple times a year, we'll do live events. It's amazing getting to meet our clients in person versus just, over email and over chat. But we like to try to take people through soup to nuts. Hey, these are some basic setups, position sizing, trading psychology. This is what we're looking for. We've got a very robust trading community where people help each other out, which is fantastic. Just kind of doing this as long as it continues to stay fun. And for now, it's certainly a lot of fun.
John, I don't think we can underestimate the real benefit of communities for new traders, the ability to talk through your trades and to get some feedback. I think it really is important for the growth of especially new traders.
Yeah, what's interesting is kind of being on the microphone, so to speak. People in the room. This year I've had a pretty good run, but over the last 4 weeks I've had a tough time, and all my trades are posted, and I think I had something like 5 or 6 trades in a row where news came out and stopped them out. But that's right in front of everybody, and we discuss it, and what went wrong, what didn't I see, and was it just the markets? I'm part of that discussion too, because the moment anybody thinks they know it all is the moment the market's going to kick them right between the eyes. And so it very much is a group and community effort, and it's a pleasure to be a part of.
So John, at Simpler Options, do you have any upcoming projects, books, events that you want to share with us?
So I am starting to work on a 3rd edition of Mastering the Trade. That's a book where the first edition was out in 2005, the second edition out in 2012. It's funny, for people that have written a book, they know it's a lot of hard work. You don't really get any money. The publisher makes all the money. But it is a way where I keep thinking if I get hit by a Mack truck, at least my kids will understand what I did and can go do it. And so that's really the goal with that, and that's what we're doing there. In terms of our website, one really, really cool thing that we've been working on for years that's just being rolled out is that we have iOS and Android apps that will now do instantaneous push notifications of the trades that we're doing to all of our members, and that's something that people really enjoyed. We find a lot of clients, they're working a full-time job. They don't have time to catch every nuance, but they can certainly get a text alert that says, hey, we're buying some calls on Tesla here. And then they could go onto their mobile app for TradeStation and buy the calls or whatever they're working on there and just knock it out. It's been a lot of fun just helping people satisfy their desire to trade, even though they're not in a position to do it full time.
Yeah, that's an exciting innovation. So, John, I understand you're trying your hand at ranching. You're the new gentleman farmer in our industry.
Gosh, about 2009 or so, my wife and I bought a little 10-acre ranchette outside of Austin, Texas, in a little community called Wimberley. And over the years, it's grown to over 400 acres. As neighbors have sold, we've kind of bought up their land parcels and things like that. And we have really grown to love living on the land. And it's 45 miles from Austin, so we can drive to Austin and get our taste of the city life. What's been great about this is for the last 2 years, we've been homeschooling our children and kind of get them through that process where they could kind of learn to do things on their own and develop some resilience and kind of a little bit of unschooling. Go out and play and try not to get trampled by the horses kind of a thing, so they can, learn how to deal with adversity. And what's been great about this is in meeting my neighbors, although they do make fun of me about my knowledge of animals because I forgot to separate the bull from his daughters, and he went ahead and knocked them up as well for the next round of calf births. So there's things like that I'm still learning. But on the other hand, I'm helping to bring fast internet into the community. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, that people can live anywhere they want to and trade. So we're investing in towers and infrastructure to bring high-speed internet up to 1,000 households in that area. And I think it's fantastic because there's people in the city that do want to live in the country, but the reality of it is they do need fast internet to continue to do their work, whether it's trading or whatever it is they want to do. And it's just become very, very much of a nice passion project of mine, and continue to see what happens with it. I have no idea how that's going to end up in 5 years, but it's certainly not boring.
That's incredibly fun. What a great project. Well, again, I want to thank our guest, John Carter, for spending this time with us today. This has been really great. Thanks, John. You can discover more about John at simplertrading.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Be sure to tune in and subscribe to more of our TradeStation podcasts. And, of course, don't forget to visit our website at TradeStation.com to learn more about our outstanding educational resources and online brokerage services. Have a good day, everybody. The preceding podcast was for educational purposes only. All of the symbols and trading ideas discussed by the instructors and guests were for educational purposes and not recommendations. Active trading is not suitable for everyone. Options trading carries a high degree of risk. You can find the characteristic and risks of standardized options disclosure and additional disclosures on the TradeStation website.